Welcome back to Tibetan Circle Podcast, episode number 4. I'm thrilled to introduce my guest, Shenpenn Khymsar.
I was born a Tibetan refugee in Darjeeling, India.
Refugees on the move, fleeing from their homeland.
My parents had fled the Chinese invasion of Tibet in 1959, and I was the first son in my family to be born in exile.
I've been a lifelong advocate for Tibetan freedom.
Because we're not violent, we're not like them. They can kill us, they can suppress us, but they're never going to take away our philosophy, our ideology.
Unite the Tibetan people and demand independence for Tibet. Free Tibet! Free Tibet!
A man with many talents, a composer, a musician, an actor, and a writer-director. Shenpenn first made his wave with his documentary Journey of a Dream, where he captured the challenges and the triumphs of Tibetan in exile through a unique juxtaposition of heavy metal with Tibetan Buddhism. From there, he mastered the technicality of filmmaking and expanded his creative reach with Jigden, the beginning of the end.
Killed my little brother, and you've changed the entire course of my karma.
An experimental crime short film that blends the Buddhist philosophy, such as the concept of khorwa, the wheel of life, into a revenge story. Then he went to create Lhasa Blue.
I thought we were robbing $1 million. All this risk for just 50 G's? I was told we were going big. This ain't big.
Exploration of personal and cultural identity.
So, you gentlemen Chinese?
We're not Chinese. We're better and taller than that.
Shenpenn also worked on Broken Wings. A personal project that showcases his versatility as a filmmaker and the story that he holds dear to his heart from where he grew up.
No! Hey, what?
And now he's promoting his latest film.
Holiness, Lhasa has been bombed.
My dear brothers, together we will fight this evil regime and claim what is rightfully ours.
4 Rivers and 6 Rangers, which dives into a Tibetan guerrilla group, Chushi Gangdruk.
We will be known as 4 Rivers, 6 Ranges.
Fierce, resistant in 1950s. In this episode, we will discuss the process behind these films and also explore Shenpenn's journey across different mediums, from his music to his activism, and how all of these elements shapes his storytelling. Plus, Shenpenn has teased some exciting projects that are in works and hinting that it might be released in the far future, so make sure you guys watch it. Enjoy. That's
Okay, that's cool.
Recording in progress.
All right. Let me go to setting real quick and we should be good. All right, first of all, thank you for Shenpenn being here. I am super grateful to do this interview. And Shenpenn is a musician, first of all, and an activist and a filmmaker. And I think the video cut off. I don't know why.
No, can share that. Keep, yes, to do your intro.
All right. Yeah, Shenpenn is everything. You know, there's no label. Shenpenn can do anything in the world. So I'm grateful to have Shenpenn here. And currently it seems like he's working on the post-production of 4 Rivers and 6 Rangers. And I can't wait to see the film. So thank you, Shenpenn. Oh, now you're back.
Yeah. Thank you.
And so, are you currently working on the? Can you hear me properly, or is it bad?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear. Nice.
All right, perfect. Are you currently working on the post production, or are you completely done with the post production?
I'm pretty much done. Just I'll you the subtitles, the closed caption, these like.
Okay. So I want to talk about the post production. Like, how do you approach the editing? Like, do you work closely with the editor, or you just let the editor do the job, or is it like a collaborative task?
Well, I mean, by the time you get to post-production, and the first phase of post-production is editing. So by the time you get to editing, I mean, if you're a director or the storyteller, you should have a clear vision of your film, the story you want to tell. So you should already have the picture, the film in your mind, even before, getting to post, because it's all a process. So when I write, I write the screenplay as the film, as it plays out. So the editing is basically, the editing of the film is done when it's written. That's how it is. So, so once the writing is done, then we shoot all the scenes. So we try to shoot all the scenes. If we need, for editing purposes, when we're doing a scene, and if we feel like, okay, we might need an extra angle or extra shot for the edit table, then we do that. But when we get to the post-production, the editor already has a clear briefing from the director. In this case, from me, my editor Akhilesh, way before we started shooting, he had a clear vision of what I wanted, how the film has to pan out. And then my editor was also on set, so he was also on shoot. So he was doing dailies lana every day, edit chair. And then we kind of do a rough cut, and then assemble the jelache. So when we get to the post and the real edit starts, first phase is a rough cut. So I let the editor be alone, so I don't involve at all, because he already knows what I want. He has the script, he knows the story, he knows the pacing, he knows the tone of the film, he knows the mood. So he edits it according to his skills, editing skills. So and typically a rough cut will take anywhere from 3 to 6 months to edit a full feature. So once the rough cut is done, then I go to the edit suite and I watch it with him. And then once the rough cut is done, then we fine tune it. And then we go scene wise, shot wise. If it's multicam, okay, I check camera A, camera B, camera C. Okay, the same scene. How does it look from another angle? How does it look from, a top angle or a low angle? What is the purpose of that scene? What's the intensity of that scene? Is it a drama? Is it a action scene, or is it a emotional scene? So based on that, we've usually shot. And so I look at all the options, and I look at what he's used, but then I also look at other options, and then we start cutting scene wise. And then I tell him, cut some frames here, some frames there, maybe, jump cut this, maybe put this scene in the front, maybe put this shot later, maybe let's slow it down, maybe pace it, so that's how it works. So he does the rough cut, and then I sit with him and we do another cut. And then after that, we start doing final tweaking. And it takes a long time to tweak and tweak and tweak, because sometimes it's very difficult for writers and directors and creators to be objective sometimes, because you get so attached to your story and your shots. And sometimes, the film that you envisioned before on paper and the film that turns out on the edit table can be a little different. So you have to be able to kind of adjust with that. And then, you know, sometimes you also have to be able to let go of perhaps your favorite scene or your favorite shot. You have to be like, okay, let it go. So all of these things comes with creative maturity and emotional maturity, and then the bigger picture. And you know, at the end of the day, the picture is bigger than me or anyone else. So yeah, so that's how we do. And then once the edit is done, the edit is locked, then we send the edit to the sound designer, and then the sound designer does all the different works of sound. In sound, there is dialogue cleaning, you know, dialogue, looking at all the dialogues, because we did sync sound. But sync sound means we recorded live. We don't do. Yeah. I didn't want to do dub. So sometimes sync sound can be a little problematic. Sometimes there's too much wind. Sometimes the mic is kind of, you know, making a lot of noise, and sometimes one actor's voice's projection is very clear, the other actor's projection is not, you know, the decibel is not the same. So all of that cleanup, so he has to do, one guy has to do complete dialogue cleanup, another guy has to do complete Foley. Foley is the sound effect, sound of your footsteps, the door sound, the gun sound, the sound of the thunder, the sound of the rain, the sound of the horse, you know, the sound of water, the sound of meat cutting, whatever it is. Wow. So that is all Foley. So Foley does that, and then there's the sound design. Sound design is again, you know, and then there's sound effects. Now, because this film in particular is a war movie, so obviously there's a lot of explosives and gunshots and then there are different types of guns. There are, you know, like pistols. There are like 303, you know, like the single cock shots, and then there is the machine guns, and then there is the, you know, there's different. So each gun has a distinctive sound. So the sound designer has to research and look for each sound from the sound banks. So that has to be matched with every single gun. So all the guns cannot sound the same. Like, you know, like a motor sound is different. You put that missile with the rocket launcher with the, so that sound is different. And then the sound of a grenade is different. The sound of a wooden house blowing up versus a sound of a tin house, a house made of tin and metal or whatever. You know, a house that has a lot of, I don't know, gas, you know. So all of that sound has to do. And then once the sound design is done, the Foley is done, the dialogue cleaning is done, then there's also music. So music, while editing, usually, because I'm a musician, I compose my own music. So I usually, you know, during edit itself, I put rough music, like for different scenes.
Temp music, yeah.
Yeah, temp, and it kind of, you know, I do a very rough kind of fade ins and fade outs, and where is this supposed to go? Where is this music supposed to go? Because music, it definitely helps in invoking the right emotions. So, and then once the sound department is done with their job, then I have to finish the soundtrack and the background music and everything. And then, you know, there's so many different tracks that I composed and I recorded. I recorded in India, I recorded in Nepal, I recorded in Prague, Czech Republic. So there are different, you know, orchestra. There's the monastic Gumbagi, Rajat and Suche. And then there's my own like guitars and drums. And then there's different types of guitar, like steel guitar, steel strings, nylon strings, like, you know, electric guitar. Like I played some heavy metal riffs, rock riffs, some very melodic nylon string. And then, you know, each scene, because I am the writer of the film, I'm also the director, but because I wrote it, so I know the emotion of every scene, every line. So I see the film before it was made. I also hear the sound in my head. I also hear the kind of music that I want. So that helped. So then we finish the music, and then what we do is me and whoever else works with me in the music, like in this case, a very famous music producer, musician, composer, Rohit Shakya from Nepal. Him and I worked together, and then there was another guy from Chennai who works with A.R. Rahman. His name is Harsa Surya. And so Surya, myself, and Surya was the programmer, and Rohit was, composing along with me. So we also now we look at scene wise. When the film is done, each department does not get the entire film. It gets reel wise. Reel. Each reel is about 15 to 18 minutes. So there's about 7, 8 reels in my film. So we go reel wise. So we watch reel one, and then we put it on screen. And while watching the reel one, we play the music right there. We compose it, and that is called scoring. That's how you score. You watch the scene and you compose. And I say, okay, maybe this scene, let's start with a keyboard, or let's start with a synth, or let's start with a horn, or let's start with a violin. Maybe this needs a cello. Maybe this needs just the starting of a drum. Ngagi mi de, ngagi, bagi ngagi. So we add all that, and then we lock it. Once we lock that, then we send the music files with the reel to the sound department, and then the sound kind of puts everything in the right place, and then the sound cleans it up, mixes it, all of that. So, and then there is one department that sound editing, and then there's another department that is doing, say, VFX. So our film had a lot of VFX because there's a lot of explosions, fires. Every gunshot has the muzzle flash, the flames coming out, and then bullets. And there are so many things that needs to be done. So many cleanups, like in the mountains. Like it looks like old Tibet. It looks period everything, but then you will see an electricity pole in the corner. So that electricity pole has to be removed in VFX. And then we have to build our own Potala Palace. So we built the Potala Palace by CGI. We have to build the Chinese MiG-15 jet, the number.
Wow.
So we have to build this MiG-15 jet CGI. So yeah, man. So there's so much, never ending. And then there's graphics department. There's the title to sequence department who designs all the time, just the title sequence. And then the end credit roll. Ming Tungu do lasla movie chane. Ming Tungu di yan kachigis chigure. So all of that.
I didn't know that one. Yeah.
So every department. So, and then subtitles done by somebody else. So yeah. So it's a lot of work, man.
Yeah. I couldn't imagine directing and doing the scoring and working closely on the production. There's so many things that you have to consider. While I was going to ask you, like, while making this film, obviously Chushi Gangdruk, most Tibetan knows about the extensive history of Chushi Gangdruk, right? And how, it happened and it's based on true story, but at the same time you are making a film, like there are some like adjustment you have to make in order to make a film. It can't be like totally true, right? For the dramatic purposes. How do you balance?
You have to take creative liberty.
Yes, yeah, that's what. How do you balance it? Are you leaning based on like making it true source material, or is just like you also making creative decision as well?
No, that's usually a tough call, but in my case, what I do is, it's very difficult to firstly, this whole subject is a very, very, very sensitive and a very difficult subject to handle. And no one has ever made a film, right, on this topic. So as the director, one of the biggest challenge for me is we don't have any like I did all the research, but most of the research was just interviews and books and articles and PhD dissertations and all that. But we didn't have any audiovisual documentation, of that time, or whatever little bit there is, we used that, and kind of tried to we try to emulate those scenes. But for example, the founder and the leader of Chushi Gangdruk, Gomputashi Andutsang, there is no audio or visual documentation record of him. So we don't know what he sounds like. We don't know how he walks. We don't know how he sits. So whatever we know is based on little interviews that people who knew him, and then from like personal accounts from his family members that are around, that are alive. So in this case, as the creator, I have to take creative decision and creative liberty. So what I do is I cannot create identical, nothing. Even Martin Scorsese, when he made Kundun, I mean, a lot of things, it wasn't really like that, but because it's cinema, you have to take that. 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt. So in my case, what I did was I made sure that the essence is intact, because the essence is the most important thing. Matzaji yorwa, tewa chorwa, the tewa main feeling, the main the dum, the main the tendaji yorwa, the malabche, making sure that we don't lose that. I mean, for example, none of them spoke English in Tibet, right? But in Martin Scorsese's Kundun, the whole film is in English, and 7 Years in Tibet is in English. In Martin Scorsese's Kundun, the whole film is in English, and 7 Years in Tibet is in English,
Yeah, at the same time, there's so many Tibetan dialects, like even like from small region to another region, like closely region, like if people live like 2 towns apart and they speak differently, like all this, I mean, it's so difficult. Even the costumes.
Yeah, it's not easy. So all these films were made in English. This Four Rivers, Six Ranges is also made in English, but the essence is there. And at the end of the day, that is most important. So I had to make that decision. And because a lot of people most people are not, most people are very conventional minded. Most people don't think from a place of depth. So a lot of people, including my family members or friends or whatever, a lot of people say, oh, Shenpenn, like, why did you make it in English? Why not in Tibetan? So that's a very conventional, because you're right, it should be made in Tibetan. But then they have not thought in depth that, firstly, we don't have professional Tibetan actors. 2, in order to make it in Tibetan, we have to have a bigger budget because we need more time. We need a dialect
level.
Yeah, we have to have a dialect coach, because even the Tibetan that Chushi Gangdruk really spoke, nobody speaks like that today.
Nah.
So all my
Unless
actors,
yeah,
exactly. So all my actors are from different places. There's a lot of them are from the US, India, Nepal, Canada, and then so some of them speak in a very TCV style Tibetan. Some of them speak in a very South Bailakopi style of Tibetan. Some of them speak in a very Darjeeling Kadru Khangsum style of Tibetan. So if I use that Tibetan, then the seriousness of the film, the story would get lost, and it would become kind of caricaturish and like a joke. So I would have loved to make it in Tibetan, but in order for me to make it in Tibetan, I have to have a lot of money because I need a lot of time.
Yeah.
And the reason why I need a lot of time is to coach for the language workshop, the dialect workshop. So each character can speak as authentically as possible. So for them to speak authentically, you have to spend a lot of time with the dialect coach. You have we don't have professional dialect coaches, so I have to source that out. I have to source somebody who can speak from Lithang. I have to source somebody who can speak from Chating. I have to source somebody who can speak from Amdo, like Ngaba, somebody who speaks
Yeah.
Labrang, somebody who speaks Lhasa. So people don't think about these things and just say, oh, why did you make it in English? So, but on the other hand, I thought the story is important. As long as the message gets out there, the story is passed on to the younger generation. And more importantly, we Tibetans, as long as we take care of our own narrative, as long as we control our narrative, because we have not been able to do that. The Chinese has been controlling the narrative. We are emotional people. So just amongst ourselves and during protests, we say Tibet belongs to Tibetans and blah, 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 but it's never taken seriously. But the Chinese, they say that, okay, Tibet is a part of China, this and that, and they make the films, they make propaganda films, they make propaganda plays, documentaries, so many things. So they're taking care of their narrative. They're doing their part. I disagree with them, but they're doing their part. So for us, and for me especially, it was very important to have our own narrative and have control over our narrative and our story. So that's why I've tried to make a very unapologetic film, even though it is in English. It is telling our story. Can you imagine what Martin Scorsese's Kundun did? Because of that one film and 7 Years in Tibet. 7 Years in Tibet I didn't really like the film so much, but still impact, and the spreading and the awareness building was immense. So all of these things, so that's how.
Yeah. I can definitely see the challenges. Like, to get a Tibetan dialect from Tibet itself is super tough. And plus, you gotta teach the actors to learn those dialects. It's gonna take at least a couple months. So I'm just wondering, like, when you do the pre-production and you had a script and you had this amazing script, and do you do a rehearsal with the actors, or how's your approach with the actors since you did a couple of films before?
Well, in this film, we had to do workshops. So we did rehearsal. We did every scene, each actor, because another challenge was none of my actors are professional actors. Most of them are first-time actors, most of them. So they've never faced the camera, So it's not easy. A lot of people think, oh, now Kiboto film and movies like easy. So my actors, each character's personality is different. They're personal characters. And then the character they're playing is very different. So I have to design all that. I have to design, okay, how would have, Gompatashi Andutsang Jinda, how would have he sounded if it was, in my head? How would have a young Lithang Athar sounded? How would have Kunga Samten Dewatsang sounded when he was young, at that time? So I kind of design a personality for each character, and then I design their voice, as in like voice modulation. How will he talk? How will he talk? How will he talk? How will the Chinese General Tan talk? So you have to create a graph and a momentum and a tempo, and the melody of each voice. So we did workshop, and then there's also the horse riding. We had to do horse riding because most of them are all first-time horse riders. So I had to train them horse riding too. And then there's action choreography, because we didn't have enough money to hire action director and stunt coordinators and all. So I directed and I designed the action myself. I had a small kind of Nepali stunt team or whatever. So there's so many aspects to pre-production. And then there's the costume department that, I had to make sure all the costume was made. And then every costume was made brand new. And then once it is made, then we had to age it. So we have to make it nyingba.
Yeah.
that process. And then Lakshya, the weapons that Chushi Gangdruk used, we could not find anywhere else. We could not rent it from, studios. We could not rent it in Mumbai, Bollywood, Hollywood, Korea, nowhere, because it's a very period specific weapon. So 1 year before the shoot, we started production of the weapons. So, I hired a couple of guys who made weapons. So we made all those weapons from scratch, from carpentry, chopping wood, to, getting the barrels, painting it, aging it, making the wheels, making the fake bullets. So a lot of work goes into pre-production also. Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of prep work, right? I mean, so you say you work with a costume designer. Who's your costume designer? Like, who's probably like expert, not expert, but like knows about what
Well,
what the what the region
ideally,
wears.
ideally, I wanted to have a Tibetan costume designer, but we could not find any. And then designing costume for a film is very different than fashion designing, So I had to be involved, in every department very much. So because we were shooting in Nepal, and so we had to source everything in Nepal and all the materials, the tailoring and everything. So we hired Nepal's costume directors, costume designers, Bonica and Reed, two Nepali ladies. So they do costume for Nepali films. So they had never done a film like this. So they had no idea. They didn't know anything about the history, culture. So it's brand new for them. So I had to kind of take them to stores, to shops. I had to show them videos, history. I had to show them, give them photos. And then I took them to the shops where we find Peugeot, and then so we start making samples, and I tell them the size, and I tell them the lengths, and then the way the Khampas would wear the chuba, and it's all different.
Yeah.
Utang style. So it took a long time. We got them on board a year before, and then so it took like at least 6 months to make the costumes, and
Wow.
then so they
6
make
months
a
of
costume. Yeah, so they would make a costume sample, and that they would bring it to me, and I would have to check. And if I didn't like it, I'd say, okay, this is not right. This material is not right. We have to redo. Like the Chinese generals, that Gamigi, Chinese generals uniform, the first
Yeah.
set that brought to me was not right. It didn't look right. So it was a waste. So we had to redo it again and get a different material. So they did it. So, unfortunately, like I had to be super involved. Everything.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't imagine the overseeing all the production and doing post-production at pre-production. You say pre-production about
Everything.
6 months, and post-production is about another 6 months. And how long was the shoot?
The shoot itself was not very long because we didn't have money, because ideally I would have loved to shoot more. We did prep for 2 years, pre-production.
Oh,
Post-production 1 year, right?
about 1 year. Oh, okay.
But shoot itself was only 21 days.
21 days. Do you
And a
do
film-
any story?
Yeah. Entire film is storyboarded. So a film like this, typically, if Hollywood or Bollywood was making a film like this, they would have taken at least 75 to 95 days to shoot.
Yeah, at least 3 months. Yeah.
Yeah. But because I didn't have that kind of budget, so I had to shoot all that in 21 days with first-time actors at 15, 16,000 feet, up in the mountains.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many challenges. So, I mean, I don't even know how I did it, but, yeah.
That's amazing. At least you can now look back and all those fun memories. Is there any memory from that shoot that you kind of like a fun story or an incident that is fun when you look back? Like, I mean, obviously you were overseeing a lot of department. I mean, there's a lot of things going on. There's no time to reflect it, right? But now when you look back, is there any time that you kind of enjoyed or incident or story?
I mean, as tough as it is and as challenging as it is. I mean, I enjoy the shoot most. I enjoy being on set. But enjoyment, Latugala, it doesn't mean we're dancing and laughing and
Nah.
drinking and enjoying is basically enjoying the stress that comes along. Enjoying, waking up early, enjoying working 16, 17, 18 hours a day, going to sleep for 2 hours, and then waking up excitedly to go back to set. All of that. So yeah, I mean, my favorite phase in filmmaking is production, like is being on set more than post-production or pre-production. When you're on set, because so many magical things happen, so many, I mean, there's so many stories. It was amazing.
Yeah.
But again, at the same time, I didn't really have time to pause and think and kind of soak it in, because I was very pressed for time. Because to knock a film of this magnitude in 21 days is actually almost impossible. That too in a very sensitive location, and that too with first-time actors, and when you are directing, producing, executive producing, and then you're also action director, you're taking care of the production, you're taking care of everything. So it was tough, but because this is my passion, and this is an important story that needed to be told, I couldn't compromise, because me doing this, I'm just a medium, but doing this film and telling our story and honoring those brave warriors, and remembering our lost nation, and remembering the journey that His Holiness had to go through, remembering all of that, and then sharing it with the rest of the world, was a very important responsibility on my part. So I wanted to make sure that I do whatever I can to tell our story, Yeah.
Obviously, I mean, you face so many challenges, setbacks, whether it's pre-production or production. Like, how do you stay motivated and just keep going? Like, even like you said it in 21 days. I mean, I couldn't imagine shooting everything on 21 days with limited budget and new actors and the location. I mean, and the equipments you have to bring it to the set. I saw the
Yeah. We
uh
had
I s-
700 kilos of. Sorry, go ahead. You saw
and
the what?
I also saw the, what do you call, background actors. There's so many background actors. I'm like, there's a lot of people involved. I just saw the trailer, and I was like, dude, it looks amazing. So I'm just wondering, what's your motivation to keep going?
See, I'm in a very interesting position, and I put myself in that position. I never set out in the world to be an inspiration. I never set out to be a role model. I never set out to prove anything to anybody. I just from childhood, I've always been a very rebellious kind of person, and I've always questioned authorities. I've always stood up where I thought there was injustice, whether it was in a school classroom or at workplace. So that's always been my nature. And then, I always had a very deep passion, connection to cinema and literature and poetry and music, because all of that saved my life pretty much. So now I'm in a situation where, I'm nobody, but at the same time, I know that so many people look up to me, so many youngsters look up to me, so many people. I get hundreds and thousands of messages from all over the world saying I inspire them, and sometimes I do wonder. I'm like, how am I inspiring them? I have not done anything. Because I'm always struggling. I have not broken any records. I have not made super hit films. I've not done anything, but my consistency and all of that, is there. But then I'm also very touched and moved by all these youngsters and so many people that say, I'm an inspiration. And then the other thing is, I've always been, I've been a long time Tibetan human rights activist. So in this case, I wanted to tell the story. I wanted to make this film. So it is my responsibility to see through, to make sure that this so that's my job. So whether I like it or not, of course, before making this film, I've had to be rational and think that, okay, I am going to have roadblocks. I am going to have obstacles and challenges. So I think to myself, I have no choice but to be positive and optimistic. Like I'm almost forced and compelled to be optimistic, because if I move, the film moves. If I stop, the film stops. And I cannot let the film stop. I cannot let that happen, because the film, the story is way more important than me or what happens to me. Even if I made up my mind that even if I get sick, even if I fall sick, or even if I suffer from anxiety or depression, or even if I die or whatever, I will finish this film and I will get it out there. So that's how, it doesn't mean that I don't have challenges. I have huge challenges. Right now, I'm facing a lot of challenges because of the nature of the film, because it's a very political film. It is perhaps the most blatant, unapologetic anti-China film, So I feel like, we've made a decent film. But for this film to get out there, for this film to get into festivals, for this film to find distribution, and for this film to be seen, there's a lot of challenges because Chinese money is everywhere. So Chinese influence is everywhere. So I'm facing all these challenges. And people don't know, when is it coming out, man? I mean, they make it sound like it's so simple,
Yeah.
I mean, nobody at this moment, nobody in the world, no Tibetan in the world wants this film to release more than I do.
That's true.
Right? So of course I want to release it. I want to show it. But then there's all these obstacles and challenges. So I'm taking a little bit of a break right now, because I haven't really had a proper break at all, because I'm constantly working. There's so many things to do. I'm traveling. Social media, Instagram, but I don't show my hardship. I don't show my battles. I don't show my wounds. I don't show my scars. I don't show me falling down and getting
Yeah, I think
beaten down.
that's one of the reasons that makes you a great director, You want to lead people and you don't want to show all the frustration or all the setbacks, right?
Yeah, because
at the same time.
Yeah, I'm not here to whine,
Yeah.
and I'm a purebred, pure blood Tibetan, and I'm a Tibetan Buddhist, and I'm a monk, Buddhist monk-minded
Buddhist monk.
No, I'm not necessarily a monk, but I have a mind of a
Yeah.
monk. I also have a heart of a warrior. That's why my
Yeah.
production company is called the Monk and the Warrior Productions.
Oh, yeah.
So
I was going to ask.
I can't afford to complain, like I can't afford to sula laurda, sula nyokta shore, sula whining chore. But this is my problem. My parents used to say, "Gala chinchugala," if I made mistakes, if I did something wrong, they would always use this tampe, like they say, so tsuk with sampagala, so door lights.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I did this, right? I
Yeah.
made this, I chose to do this. So even if I fall down, even if I get bruised, even if I get beaten down, even if I have to go to jail, whatever, it is my job. It is my responsibility to finish the film.
Yeah,
And I
I
did.
think I think that's one of the things that I liked about you is you've been really consistent from six. I think I saw you back in 2018 when I was in the state. I was in the state when in 2014 and I was 18 and I saw the film that short film, first gangster film, first Tibetan
Jigden.
gangster film, Jigden. Yeah, that's when I
Jigden.
know about you, and that's when I started following you. And after that, I saw a couple of films. So I think one of the main things that I really like about you is you're consistent. Like I mean, you made films, whether it's short film or feature film, you've been really consistent. And I want to take you back to the first one and the first, and later on, I watched your documentary, first documentary, and that was
Mhm.
really personal, and I think it's really good. And what, like, how did that idea came into you? Like, is that like you've been? I think that was the first project, right? That you uh did
Yeah, yeah. Journey of a Dream. That was the first
Journey
one.
of the Dream. Yep. Where did that idea came into, and like, what was the reason behind it?
That documentary idea came in 2006, 7-ish, 2007, Dibala. And I shot the documentary in 2008. And then it took me a few years, and then it was released in 2011.
Oh, that's amazing. Because I saw the whole journey, and you just keep going. That was the first documentary that you did, and then you did the Jigden, the
Yeah.
beginning of the end. And
And yeah.
did you learn anything? I mean, I know it's tough to look back and look at your old projects because you have, I mean, you have reached a certain level, and you kind of look back and you're like, oh, this is not that good. But that was part of your life. I mean, you were going through a process and you made something, and then you just keep going. Did you like when you look back at the documentary? Did you learn anything that you took it uh to your first short film, Jigden?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the technical stuff, because Gonzo experience Yomar Bashirat Didi. So I took mostly all the technical knowledge. Uh, uh, and then the storytelling, it keeps evolving. And for me, my story is interesting because, I've been in the US for so long, so many years, and I never got to, like, when I was very young, I always wanted to go to NYU film school. That was my dream, but I couldn't go and I couldn't afford to go. And there was, the kange mangbuter, well, and then shugu gi kange, benjo gi kange. And then I didn't have any support from anyone, who would send me to a film school, you know, because especially at that time, I want to go to a film school, Lana, it was not common at all in the Tibetan world.
Yeah.
Like everybody's, doing business, or they're doing nursing, or they're doing engineering, or they're trying to do lega tempo 9 to 5. So, so I wanted to go to film school, but I couldn't. So eventually, I mustered all my courage and I quit my corporate job in 2008. I didn't want to be a part of that whole capitalistic structure, and I wanted to do what I really love. So I decided to embark on the filmmaking journey, and I thought, okay, it's safer to start with a documentary. And then I wanted to make a very different kind of documentary, a life as a refugee through my eyes. And then I wanted to do something that was not done before, like juxtapose Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan freedom struggle with heavy metal music.
Yeah.
I mean, that's super unique. So, and then I was a product of so many different cultures. I was a product of, Tibetan, very strong Tibetan traditional family. I was a product of the Irish Catholic boarding school. I was a product of America. I was a product of the rock and roll culture of, UK and America. I was a product of, the 70s and the 80s and the 90s rock music. I was a product of, great literature, cinema, all the way from Francis Ford Coppola's Godfather to, to Martin Scorsese, to Akira Kurosawa, to Satyajit Ray, to Fellini, to, I mean, name it. So I was a part, I had a part of all of that in me, because I had consumed all of that. Right. So I was a part of India. I was a part of the Nepali culture. I was a part of the Indian culture. I was a part of the Tibetan culture. I was a part of the, American culture, the Canadian culture, and then the music culture. So there's so many subgenres. And then I thought, oh my God, like my life is exciting and fascinating. Not many people have this kind of, interesting life. So I thought, why not I start with a documentary, and then documentary is a great way to learn filmmaking. So making documentary, Journey of a Dream, and making Jigden and Lhasa Blues and all these, those were basically my compensation for film school. That was my film school that I created myself, with little budget or no money at all. And so I was hands-on learning how to make a film, because I couldn't go to a class. I couldn't study from world's top filmmakers. So, and then YouTube wasn't there at that time. So I just made mistakes. I learned about camera. I started shooting myself. I was editing. I was doing everything, and then music, I always had a background. So yeah, I mean, so it's been a long journey. People have no idea. People think that Shenpenn is making movies. Shenpenn, people look at me. I'm like driving around. I'm traveling around. I'm like quite ingsabu. I'm fashionable. I wear ingsabu. I have really cool bikes, and I ride horses and all. So they think this is my life. That's not my life. This is the life I designed for me. But to get here, I have been through hell and fire. I have been through so much, and, struggling, it takes so long. I mean, I have been chasing this dream for so long. I went to Mumbai. I ran away from home when I was 17 years old to Bollywood to become an actor. And I failed miserably when I was 17. And I lost face. I couldn't even show my face at home because everybody would laugh. I mean, oh, the which actor, all the Khymsars and the friends, everybody makes fun of you at that time. But the most important thing is, what? Fast forward all these years, and I'm
Look
still
at
doing
you
it.
now, yeah.
So as long as you are true to yourself, you are genuine with yourself, and you're authentic, and you're passionate, and your passion is sincere, nothing else matters. And to be honest, I'm not doing all this. I could have made more money doing business and being in the corporate world, because I mean, I'm relatively smart and intelligent, and I'm skilled enough and talented enough to make six-figure salaries. I could have lead a nice life. I could have had a house, a wife, kids, picket fences. I could be driving a nice Tesla, whatever, but I've never been driven by monetary success. I've always been driven by passion and excellence. And and then I'm also very, I don't like surviving. I don't like surviving. I like living. I am so fucking alive. It's not even funny. Like, I am so alive that I feel like, when I'm riding my bike, I feel, everybody feels it, but nobody grasps it. I feel, and I make myself very present with the breeze that's hitting my face. When the rain falls and the drop touches my skin or my hands and my cheeks, I pause that moment and I seize that moment and I live it. So I'm very present. And this is how I choose to live. This is how I have constantly worked on myself and to evolve into this kind of human being. And I'm still learning, and I feel like I'm still far from where I'm potentially capable of being, and and I'm quite unapologetic in my way of life. Like, I'm not like a typical Tibetan. I mean, that's me. Like,
Yeah.
I don't post videos and pictures of me riding horse so that I can get more likes and followers. I post them because I really do love horses. I'm
You
probably one
do.
of the I'm probably one of the very few. I cannot say if I'm the only one, but at least in exile, I'm one of the very few Tibetans who loves horses, who rides horses, who knows about horses. You know, so, and then motorcycle too. Like, just recently I had another bike and I sold that bike and I made a customized bike. I wanted to have my own style. So I designed the bike, I designed the tank, I designed, what I wanted in the seat and everything. So for me, this is not being materialistic. This is being creative, and this is being, alive. You know what I mean? I play the guitar.
Yeah.
My guitar is always here with me, and this is where this exact seat right here. This exact seat is where I composed the main melodies of Four Rivers, Six Ranges on this guitar initially. Like this is where I was composing, like so I composed like melodies like that, and then I wanted to have a Tibetan but a very Western cowboy style of Tibetan music.
Is there gonna be an album coming in pretty soon?
Well, the album from the film, soundtrack.
Okay.
So I'm very alive. Like, like I love cooking. I made lunch today. I made the shada khaladins because I live alone. I'm alone. I don't have anybody. So I cook and I don't like to be miserable, even though there are times when I feel miserable, but I don't like the feeling of it. So I pick myself up and I'm like, what's stopping you? You want to eat a nice meal, you cook it. You want to hear a certain type of music, you play it. I wanted to the dibula film bula nga nganzu gumba gi nga dongyo jiyore. And I tried to get the monks to play a particular beat, but the monks are used to only doing the chögiti, so they couldn't get it, the timing. So I said, let me try. So I played the drums myself.
Oh, is that a close-up shot or just wide angle?
No, drums, recording la, music.
Oh, a recording, okay.
Soundtrack. So I'm somebody who believes that if there's something you really want, go get it. You want something, do it. You want something to be done, you do it.
Yeah, that's amazing. Because
my philosophy.
No, Shenpenn, I want to ask you, like, talking about doing it, like, where do the ideas come from? Like, you made Jigden, and I saw the IMDb, and there's gonna be Jigden too. Like, is that a tease or is that just somebody made it up? Or
No, it's not Jigden 2, but I'm actually planning to make like a feature Jigden proper now, like a full-on Tibetan, like a Tibetan kind of gangster film, with there's always a Buddhist subtext in my stories. Even Jigden has a very Buddhist subtext. Le Gyumde, the older brother, he's realizing a lot of things, and he got into that business because of circumstances, but he did not want that for his brothers. But because of his own lay, he could not escape it. So Jigden, now I want to make like a feature film called Jigden Khorwa later on, and in that, I've written the story of three brothers, again the same, but these three brothers, the oldest one is 16, and the youngest one, the 16, 10, and 5 is 16, 10, and 7. 16 is the oldest, 10 is the younger, and the 7 is the youngest. So the three of them escaped from Tibet through the mountains, and they come to Nepal, And then from Nepal, they come to Dharamsala Nilekha. And from Dharamsala, they go to school, and then the older one slowly starts working, and he has to make money to help his brothers. So the story takes place from Tibet to Nepal, Tamil, Bauda, and then to Majnukatila, MT, and then slowly this Loche Pochepuchan. Then he goes to New York, and then how he gets into the crime world, by circumstance and by accident, and how he gets sucked into it, and then how he tries to keep his two younger siblings out of it, but then the two younger brothers are also pulled in because of the lay, so Jigden khorwa. So that's the gangster film.
Wow. So it was inspired by your short film, but it's gonna be more complex, more action.
Yeah, I want to make it like John Wick meets like, I don't know,
Martin Scorsese.
Scorsese and Godfather and all of that,
So you already finished the script, and
I finished writing, yes.
Oh. So I'm just wondering.
I've written a lot. So I write a lot.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how do you choose your project? You're like, you get an idea and you just write it down, and then it becomes your project, or it depends on your mood or like flow, like how you choose the project going on. Like,
to be honest, I'm not trying to give you a philosophical answer, but I think the reality today, at this stage in my life, I realize that it is not me who's choosing the projects or the story. It's the story that's choosing me. It's the project that's choosing me. So I have about 10 stories ready right now, new stories. There's Chushi Gangdruk, Four Rivers, Six Ranges. Chapter 1 is done. Chapter 2 and 3 is left. Jigden khorwa is left. Karma, Running to Stand Still, that is left. Marpolane, the first Tibetan vampire movie I've written, vampire story.
Oh, that would be a cool one. Yeah, I'm psyched.
It's called Marpo. So I finished writing
first vampire movie, first gangster movie, first war movie. First Tibetan war movie. It just keeps going.
The funny thing is, I'm not trying to be the first. It's not like, oh, let me be the first. Like, there's no ego issue here. I'm not this, but it just so happens that my mind is so crazy and wild and raw and free and so liberated in my head that I'm so open to any stories. And then I've always been a very big fan of vampire movies, since I was a child. Like, I've watched almost all Dracula movies, all vampire movies. I've read so many books and comics, but that is more biblical and, the Western Transylvania vampires, movies like Interview with the Vampire, Tom and Brad Pitt and all of those guys. And then later on, Kate Beckinsale's series of Underworld, where they had vampires versus lichens. Lichens are the werewolves. It's crazy. Like, there's so much of, creativity and so much of, imagination involved. So I'm like, I've always heard stories of Bamos and Dumus. We heard. But I'm like, when are we going to tell this story? When are we going to make a film on that? So that's how I started writing. But I didn't write because I want to be the first one.
No.
I've written one of the oldest script I have, and I've not been able to make the film yet, is called Wounded Vows. Wounded Vows. And that's, again, a completely different, it's very not directly, but one director that inspired me to write this was Ang Lee, who made Brokeback Mountain. And then Wong Kar-wai, who made, Chungking Express, and then, In the Mood for Love. So, I wrote this story called Wounded Vows. Vows is, so Wounded Vows is basically a story of a 16-year-old monk and an 18-year-old monk, and it's a story of their love story. It's their love story. They fall in love in the monastery, in the Gumba, but they don't get to explore that emotion. They don't get to exercise that feeling because of social stigmas and because of so many reasons. It's a story of a tragic and a failed love story that does not get to be realized, that does not get to be experienced. So now it might sound very blasphemous, and it might sound like, oh, but the irony is that I write all these stories from a very Buddhist place, so there's judgment. I don't judge people, and if there are people who says, oh, this does not happen, then I will prove it to them that there has been lovers in Gumbas, there has been homosexualities in Gumbas. So why are we going to shy away from talking about these things? We're human beings, So the purpose of Nangchue, the purpose of Buddhism is to kind of transcend ourselves from all these human emotions and human, entanglements, right? So as a storyteller and as an artist, I feel like it is my responsibility to be as honest and as truthful as possible in my stories. So I write a lot. Like even today I was writing some things. I write ideas. It doesn't mean I'm always sitting on a computer and writing an entire script. I always write ideas. Sometimes I'm driving and I get some crazy idea, and then I can't write. So I just record it into my phone. I dictate it and I just record the idea. So sometimes I hear a melody in my head, like a musical melody, Dang Jirwa, and I'm driving. So I can't play a guitar there. I can't play piano. So what I do is I sing the melody and I record it. So that way it stays. Otherwise I'll forget.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very like disciplined and passionate and kind of, I have my own methods and my own process. So,
Yeah, whatever works for you. I mean, we try
exactly.
to do it, right? And I mean, the fact that you have 10 scripts in the vault, and there's a possibility that some of them is going to be turned into feature film in the future, right? That's amazing.
Yeah. Hopefully before I die, I can make, at least 12 to 15 films before I die. So when I die, my filmography, I will be happy if I have 12 to 15 movies as my filmography.
Yeah, that's amazing. Have you ever thought about having your script and being directed by someone else? Because you produced a couple of movies before you shot Four Rivers and Six Rangers. So is there any possibility that somebody else takes your script and direct it, or you want to direct your own material?
No, I mean, I haven't thought of that because I don't think I'm very open to collaborating with other filmmakers, but the stories that are very personal to me, the stories that I wrote, most probably I will direct it because I know that only I know how I want that film to be. But having said that, I'm open to, seeing who comes in the right time and who I can see as, the director of this film. And maybe producer, I can find different producers or a good producer. Like me right now, our Tibetan filmmaker, Tsering Tashi Gyalthang from Vietnam, is a very good filmmaker, and their film just got selected at the Busan. So shout out to them. The Drung films from Dharamsala, Tenzin and Khasa, Tsering Gyalthang, and there's some other filmmakers. I don't know them personally. Sonam Tseten, Sonse. So their film, it's an anthology. So their film got selected in the Khasa, Busan. So Tashi Gyalthang and myself, we've been talking of collaborating. And so maybe I will produce one of his films and he will produce one of my films. So when he directs, I produce. When I direct, he produces. So we're talking. So we don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes because you say you want to direct your own material. Makes sense. And so I'm just wondering, right? Let's say I'm an actor. I'm not going to be an actor anyway. Just let's just say I'm a Tibetan actor and wants to be in your film. And let's say I did some works before. And what are advices that you can give somebody who are interested in it, who is really passionate about acting and wants to be in a film? Like, is there any advices that you can give me?
Well, I mean, I'm not sure if I can give any advice, but what I would suggest is if you really want to be an actor, make sure you first have a full clarity as to why you want to be an actor. If you want to be an actor because it looks glamorous and because you want to be famous and you want to have followers and likes, then I don't recommend. I always tell people, if you want to be an actor or a filmmaker or a director, you should do it because you're super passionate about it, and you should do it because you cannot breathe without doing it. Then
Yeah,
So
you heard from Shenpenn, right? If anybody wants to do an actor, if you are doing audition with Shenpenn, you know what to say.
yeah, I mean, you should do it because you absolutely love the craft.
Yeah,
Learn. You
obviously,
should
yeah.
not do it. You should not do it because you want attention and fame and name and all that. So that is there because it comes with the territory. If you're good, it'll come. But that should not be your motivation. The other thing is uh, read a lot. Tibetans don't read. So if you want to be a good actor, you have to be a good reader. You have to be into stories. You have to read novels. You have to read literature. Literature la thona machina, you can't. And then you have to be culturally sensitive. You have to be politically aware. You have to be socially aware. You have to know everything. You can't say, I don't like politics. You can't say, I don't like religion. As an actor, you have to be aware of everything. What if you get a role of a politician? What if you get a role of a priest? What if you get a role of a rapist? What if you get a role of a serial killer? You're going to keep judging. You will never be an actor. So I would recommend to read and to study and to read books and stories and literature and watch world cinema, not just mainstream Hindi films and Hollywood mainstream films. And then the other thing is, if you can take acting lessons, take voice lessons, because your voice and your eyes, these two are the most important instrument as an actor. So you have to be able to modulate your voice. So yeah, I think these three. And then I always say this, I think the most important thing for an actor is you have to be a good human being to be a good actor. Yeah.
All right, that's amazing. And I kind of want to go away from the filmmaking, and because you've always been a vocal. I mean, you said it, you're not afraid to speak your mind, and you did it, I mean, years and years ago. Now you've been doing it for years. I mean, so I'm just wondering, like, what's your perspective on the future of I mean, the future Tibetan in exile and also Tibetan cinema as well? Like, how do you see?
That's a tough one. Now, the future of Tibetan people, I think what we have done, at least in exile, knowingly, unknowingly, or whether it was designed, I don't want to get into that. But what has ended up happening is we Tibetans have depended so much on His Holiness. We Tibetans have pegged so much upon His shoulders, and we have only learned, and we have only been able to identify our Tibetanness, and we've only been able to identify ourselves through His Holiness. So we have not been able to develop other important role models of the society. We don't have pop culture icons. We don't have, like different artists or who are successful, athletes who are successful, tech guys who are successful, innovators who are successful. We don't have sportsmen who are successful. We don't have celebrities other than, our lamas. So that, I feel like what has happened is because we have used His Holiness's name so much in vain that we have kind of handicapped ourselves. And what has happened is the entire world gave attention to His Holiness, rightfully so, and the entire world loves Him. We all love Him, but we never worked on ourselves as individuals and as Tibetans. And I genuinely, psychologically, I believe, even from a clinical psychological perspective, I believe that if you work on your individual identity, your individuality, and kirangi sosogi individual identity is strong, you can protect the community's identity. But we Tibetans, we've never worked on our individual identity. We have become raluk, we've become herd mentality. So we've only depended on His Holiness's identity, His Holiness's name. And of course, He should have been an inspiration to us. But I genuinely don't think He became an inspiration, or we took Him as an inspiration. I took Him as an inspiration. That's why I never use His Holiness's name or His photos. I only use my own talent, my own skills, but I'm inspired by Him. So Tibetans, I don't think we got inspired, we took inspiration from Him, but rather we depended on Him. And unknowingly, we use Him everywhere. Because we get attention, we get respect, we get momentary, gratifying feelings from the Western world or the rest of the world because of His Holiness's name. So we feel good. When His Holiness comes to the US and when the stadium is full, when all these Tibetans are all dressed well and everybody's wearing their khojens and chubas and suit and genja, and we come there and then we see so many securities, DSS, Diplomatic Security Service. We see all these FBI looking people. Tibetans think they're all FBI or CIA. They're not. They're DSS. DSS is Diplomatic Security.
Yeah.
So when we see that, and when we see Hollywood celebrities, when we see senators, and when we see congresswomen and congressmen, when we see all of them coming and a lot of other wealthy Inji people coming, we all feel proud. We all feel good. And we vicariously live through that experience because we feel validated. And we've only learned to validate our existence and ourselves through His Holiness. And that, if we didn't use it as an inspiration and all worked on ourselves and huda pada machina chimena, it can become detrimental, because the reality is at some point after His Holiness's, after His Holiness's time, when he passes away, what is going to happen is the rest of the world is not going to care about us because we've not given anything else. We might get sympathy here and there, but the only export or the only role model or the only model or the only representation that is done through one person, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So if we really love Him, if we care about Him, if we respect Him, then we should all try to become something, and we should all try to achieve excellence, and we should all try to aim for, we should all start working on ourselves to make ourselves high value human beings. And that's why I am working so hard, to become somebody, to become something, so that I can take a lot of that weight from our cause and from His Holiness, and I can do my part. And so the difference between, the difference between how I revere His Holiness versus, how others are. It's very, so this is how I love him and I respect him and I follow his guidance. His Holiness said, Yamane, we need Gumba Mangbo Magyap, Kundi Mangbo Sungere, Gumba Mangbo Magyap, Tilling Anzubun, millionaire Mangbo Tongore, Geda Chembo meet Tongore, Mi Pet Hangsa, Jumbo Tongore, Sungera, the Yes, Nela Yamarabati, Kundi Rang Constitution Sungerati. That thing Anzuki Chebo here. Anzubuni, Geda Chembo, Mi Mangbo Tena. Then Anzuki Kapdi, Pugyaramo Degre, the Anzuki. Baton Yorba related Yukshalugiowa related baton the egg you cannot let baton the Tandaba to constitute it's in his hand. So, but there is nobody, that can take the baton and run another century, So that's why I mean the Kirangi Tuagi land the Perimbo of Shasta, go to go matchna ya kochme ge shege du lagre ta nganzo chama gi ngaranzo gi thabje da chaden do ngo gangla sebje yo na he mere ki maung ba ngaranzo gi sonja da ngaranzo gi chapsi da denzo songya bya ko cheya da nganzo gi nedan dila yage taya ina ngaranzo chama gi andane huda pada chego yadi pe masike chum tongdo nganzo barakhama de yo mare we should not talk about regionalism. Choga cholo ki keja share yomare. Especially nganzo kundu le chigi nangba ina ta nganzo ti nangche chingeji ina ta doa misimje thamje langerwa. Doa misimje thamje labna chamatsura dibola. So why we so petty and ko amdore, ko khambare, ko ozangre, ko gelugre, ko kagyure, ko ngingmare. Like why do we do that? We have to become the best Tibetans, best version of ourselves.
Yeah, that's 100% true, man. I really appreciate the advice. I mean, those who get it, they will 100% get it, and I think it's 100% true. And I also want to kind of ask you about how do we come together as a Tibetan? Like we got Tibetan government in exile, and their approach is middleware approach, and you got people on the all the non-government organizations, SFT, Ranzen, all these people, they are advocating for Tibetan independence. And how is there any way to come together as one, or you think it's out of the question?
No, I think if we all develop a sense of true nationalism and patriotism, then we can come together. We have to drop our tribal, regional mentalities. We have to drop our petty-mindedness. And then, right now, the exile government or the Central Tibetan administration's political policy is the middle way, and I respect it. But like myself, I've always been a Rangzen complete independence advocate. And in the long run, I feel like we also have to understand who we're dealing with. We're dealing with China. We're dealing with a totalitarian government. So when you're dealing with a totalitarian government, a lot of this whole compassion and spiritual talk is not going to work because they're a totalitarian government, autocratic, highly economically, capitalistically driven nation. And their vision is world dominance at some point. That's their goal. So we're dealing with a government like that. So when you deal with somebody like that, at the end, if we don't demand complete independence, we're going to lose our case completely. Because what's going to happen is, if you and I are having a fight over something, and if you say, no, this is mine, and if I say, no, this is mine, because you're already saying it's yours, right? China's already saying it's theirs. So if we say, no, it's ours and we need it back, then what happens is the argument is open. It stays open. But the moment I say, for example, I'll give a very graphic, controversial example. People might be entertained or people might not like it. But if I am your neighbor but I'm more powerful than you. I'm stronger than you, right? And you have a beautiful house, and you have a beautiful wife, and you have your car and everything. And I come and I take it all from you, right? And I will not listen to you. I will say, you can work for me. If you agree to be under me, you can work for me. I will take care of you, right? So if you're a man of dignity and honor, then you will never do that. You will fight for your home. You will fight for your wife, right? But if you come to me and say, okay, Chola, or okay, Shenpenn, yes, this house belonged to me. That wife used to belong to me. Now she's yours. Now the house is yours. But can you also let me come and stay there? And can you let me sleep with her sometimes? Lana, you lost the argument. You've lost the battle. But if you say, this is mine and she's mine, I want her back, and you keep that argument going, then the argument politically will stay active. Otherwise, if we don't change this at some point, it's not going to be active anymore. It's going to become dormant, and it'll become, and that's exactly what China wants. China wants this to happen. After His Holiness, China already has their own plans and strategy. They're not idiots, They have very smart moves and everything. So we have to outsmart them. And the only way out by outsmarting them is to be integral first. We have to be honest, right? So we cannot fight. I'm not saying we have to use violence, but we have to be steadfast, and we have to be dignified, and we have to be assertive, and we have to use what is in our advantage. You have to calculate what are things that works for us. What is the advantage? One of the greatest advantage is nobody likes China in the world. No democratic countries, Western countries, Australasia, Asian countries, majority of them, Korea, Japan, Taiwan, India, nobody likes China. America, UK. So how are we using that against them, and how are we using that for our benefit? So we have yet, this is my observation, we have yet to play intelligent politics. All we've done is thank you, thank you, thank you. And then we play this very humble, go gursche, no, go gurgoya yomare. Mila nyapcho share yomare. Ina kerangi sosok wangja di tona, kerang wangja di sulenya di kerangi kebe totare. So we have to have think tanks. We have to have highly, highly, highly intelligent and strategic Tibetan minds now to figure out strategic, social internet warfare. We have to demolish, the myth, or we have to debunk the Chinese narrative. And in order to do that, we have to be smart, intelligent, highly educated, and highly, 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 highly patriotic. Semshuk hangsaya bobiyo natsola. So
yeah. So how do you come? I was gonna ask, like you said, I mean, you articulate, put it together, and how do we come together as a rangzin da umelam, like middleware approach, and you got rangzin? Like, how do we come together? Is there a way, from your opinion, that you think there's a way to do it?
There's always a way. There's always a way. First way is to first be able to talk to each other. Us, we treat each other as enemies. Umelam chinge dinzuki rangze chenge la pet koran dinzuta zapchen dadawut gore. Rangze chenge dinzuki umelam dinzula pem mase dadawut tagiore. Dinzut tawa di kyotang gore. Tichine ngegi thagi lagido nganzo kundu la tia di ngarancho sosogi sorwa da semkam la phenya che tu ngaran zu ngo la phe che tu chig yore ma to nganzu kundi gi kala ngene kundi gi kala michila nyamle chinge pe kombure because nganzu nangche go chenge che yena if we follow Buddhism and if we follow the Tibetan teaching, the Buddhist teachings, and if we've listened to His Holiness and followed His Holiness's teachings, then a lot of this problem should not have even occurred in the first place. Rangzenda Uma Parula that rift, that tension, yong mogoyare. Kamba da Uzang Parula tension, yong mogoyare. Chuluk dinzu Parula tension, yong mogoyare. You know, Sikyong Pemba Tsering gi group da, Sikyong Lobsang Singye gi group tension yong mogoyare. So, you know, ta nganzo ngaran dawi na nganzo peba trine mata peba yin pe poba chinge chin. You know, pebe chizo chilo la mangbo chalon chi ne chilo la mangbo dekyo michirwa. Nganzo pebe chizo chilo la dene pebe chizo bul le du gala chik di khari tongo du pebe chizo bula ngaranzo takdo chinge pe mangbo du khatang nge pe mangbo du chele ge nge mangbo du ma dab nge mangbo du ma kangba thenge pe mangbo du. Nge nangba ngone thane yang thakpa pe semkang rikpa ting sarbo gotsonge sema rikpa ting sarbo gotsonge nyingji ting sarbo gotsonge tongi pet khora ting sarbo gotsonge dembashi ting sarbo gotsonge changjuk semba tem pet khor ting sarbo gotsonge chi yorwa semke like member semke the jukpa semke ting sarbo gotsonge pe kombo thongge probably Chagdo chingeda, katangeda, nawa mandongeda, chik chik lamsa gossip chiada, chuto chiada, nganzu, you can do a social experiment. Nganzu pepechizo khande yume, kenanzu experiment chindigre. Kenan Instagram la thanda live do. Instagram la dukse keja she, shamde shue keja she, khat sorbu she, dirty talk sorbu, pet khat dukse lada, kenan viewership lamsa manga dure, tange. Ta kenan lobjon da yonde da sherab da ishegi keja shenge jena tange shira yomar gatsal. So what does that say about us as a society? You know, I'm a social scientist. I observe society. I'm a writer. I'm a thinker. And I care about us. I care about Tibetans. Ngarala ina ngeki tawa di rangze twenge re ine kera tawa umelam re la na nga kera la dado che thongmendo. We can still be friends. We can still have difference in opinion. But you should be able to listen to me to understand me. I should be able to listen to you to understand you. But we don't even know how to listen. Nganzu gotsoya che tu ngengi omare. Nganzu lenge che tu ngenge gengere. Things are work keje ditsu.
Yeah, facts.
So yeah, man. Ring tamase. Keje share chasta.
No, that was good, Shenpenn. I mean, I really appreciate the time. And so I'm just wondering about the film. Let's go back with the Four Rivers, Six Rangers. Is there gonna be a premiere in USA, or is not yet decided? And
we will have a premiere in New York and Toronto, and then we will have screenings in Toronto, New York, Boston, Minnesota, Chicago, Madison, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Portland, Seattle, and then Calgary, Vancouver, Paris, Belgium, London, Zurich, and then in Sydney, Melbourne, you know. So we have a lot of work to do. So we have to plan all that. But New York, Toronto, la premiere chair.
Okay, the dates are not yet decided, right? Okay.
That we're still figuring out.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I've also seen you do a lot of media work with your films. I mean, that must be one of the exhausting tasks. I mean, and I appreciate you doing those medias. I mean, I think it's a good thing because when I listen to actors and like directors, they always say, oh, you know what, that like doing the press is one of like most not difficult, but
exhausting
thing. Yeah.
No, it's exhausting. It's stressful. It's but But like I said earlier, if I move, the film moves. If I stop, the film stops. So I can't afford to do that.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see Four Rivers and Four Rivers and Six Rangers. And I just want to say all the Tibetans, just like we show up at any ceremonies. Like I know a lot of Tibetans go to ceremonies. Like you see thousands and thousands of ceremonies. If we do the same thing to the Tibetan artists and Tibetan communities, it's going to be way better. And I just want to say, make sure you when the premiere comes in, make sure you guys watch Four Rivers and Six Ranges. It's just gonna be $15 or whatever, $30, and just support our Tibetan.
I said, yeah, everybody should pull up, show up.
Oh yes, yep. I can't wait, Shimbila. Thank you for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Keep it up. I like your the Mingdi Kharsa 59 frames
per second.
Frames per second. I like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Thank you. Thank you, Shimbila. Have a good day.
Hopefully, next time when I come to the US, if I come to Connecticut or whatever, let me know. We'll meet up.
Absolutely, man. Thank you.
Stay positive. Keep learning. Keep learning.
Appreciate
we all
it.
need each other. We need you. Okay. Huda patachya. Lo.
Yes. Appreciate it, Shimbila.
Okay. Take care. Sitting. Yeah.
Thank you, Shenpenn, for taking this time to do this podcast. And I'm super excited to see his film. And if you're watching this, make sure you check out his film when it's released in the United States. Thank you.